I'm Freya, co-founder of Potentia Coaching, a weight loss coaching service that has helped hundreds of women lose weight sustainably. So if weight loss is your goal, check the description below to see how we could help you. So there's a bit of a myth that 1200 calories is the magic number for women who want to lose weight. And it all comes back from really shitty diet culture back in like the 70s. People think that it's going to cause miraculous weight gain when actually it's probably going to do the opposite. And that's typical for most active women. Now, what I will say right here is for some women in some circumstances, 1,200 calories or even below is what they might need to be on for fat loss. But for the general active woman, this is considered a little bit too low. And I'm going to go on to tell you how you should properly work out your calories for fat loss. The main mistake that women make when they want to lose fat, and a mistake that we have helped hundreds of women to come out of, is that eating less isn't always better. It can cause quite damaging effects. First off, metabolic adaptations. If you eat less, your body's going to become really quite effective at energy conservation. You're going to have metabolic adaptations, which essentially means your body is going to start burning less calories throughout the day because it's conserving what you are giving it. And if you burn less calories, your calorie deficit is therefore going to be smaller, which is going to make progress a lot slower. You may get an increase in muscle loss. So if you're not fueling your body correctly, your body has to break down muscle essentially as a backup form of energy, which then causes muscle loss. Again, it causes metabolic adaptations, and so this can really stunt your progress. It can also cause a whole host of hormonal changes. Sometimes if you take your calories too low, essentially your body is just fighting back at you. So taking your calories too low is not the answer. What most people also don't understand is if they are aiming for a lower calorie figure, if you actually stuck to that figure, arguably, you would lose weight, but I guarantee you're really not going to stick to that calorie figure consistently. It's just probably going to make you binge, which is then going to rocket your calories anyway. So it's just not the answer. I guarantee that most of you watching this video have probably gone online and used a calorie calculator, which will, work out your BMR. And this will give you a strong starting point, but what it doesn't often consider is any exercise that you do, any metabolic or hormonal conditions that you might have, stress, sleep, all of that stuff is really, really important. A good way to calculate your calories, it could be taking your body weight in pounds and timesing it by 10. But I want to dig a little bit deeper here. I actually want you to understand what makes up the calories that you burn and how we can take all of that into consideration when working out the calories that you should be on. What actually determines your calorific needs is something called your TDEE, and that stands for total daily energy expenditure. And that figure is made up of a lot of things. First off, your metabolism. So your metabolism is very simply the calories that you burn at rest and the calories that your body requires to complete its life-sustaining function. So if I laid in bed all day, my heart still needs to keep beating, my lungs still need to keep breathing, and that requires energy, that burns calories. So we will all burn a baseline amount of calories a day. The higher your BMI, likely the higher this figure. That's why it's easier to lose body fat when you weigh slightly more. So your total daily energy expenditure, or in simple terms, your calories burnt, is made up of your BMR. It's then also made up of your NEAT, which stands for non-exercise activity thermogenesis. And that's essentially your step count. That's any movement that you do outside of exercise, e.g. when I walk down the stairs in the morning, walk to my fridge, walk to the car. That is all movement that is burning calories, but it's not kind of purposeful exercise. Another factor that comes into how much we burn in a day is our digestion, or the thermic effect of food. When we eat food, we have to break that food down, and that requires calories to break it down. That requires energy to break it down. And then finally, a very small percentage of the calories that we burn in a day is any additional exercise. So when you go to the gym for 30, 40 minutes, if you go for a run, that will also, of course, add to your calories burnt in the day. So we need to take all of that into consideration. And here is where most people underestimate their NEAT. They underestimate how much they'd actually burn in a day in addition to their metabolism. So let's talk about numbers. For example, someone like myself, for argument's sake, I might have a metabolism of 1,400 calories. So that means that if I didn't move a muscle in the day, I would burn 1,400 calories. But I do. I get up, I complete 10,000 steps, I go to the gym. So my calorie expenditure is actually looking more like potentially 2,200 calories. So to lose fat, in simple terms, all that I would have to do is eat under 2,200 calories. Now, the sweet spot of how much we eat under the figure that we burn in a day is about 500. And this is the trajectory that we like to set our clients on. We feel like a 500 calorie deficit is a really sustainable amount of fat burnt per week. It would surface into about 0.5 kilo of body fat loss per week. So all I would do is take my total daily energy expenditure of 2,200 calories and I would minus off 500, which would give me a calorie goal of 1,700 calories. Now, the more or less active you are would give you a different calorie figure, and we can work this out by using activity factors. So you would take your BMR and you would times it by 1.1 if you were sedentary, or 1.2 if you were not, quite lightly active. The more active you get, you would times it by a slightly bigger activity factor, like 1.4, 1.6 if you are really quite active. Another thing to consider when looking at your calories is men burn more calories at rest than women. They have a higher muscle mass percentage. This is going to come into play. So when your partner is losing fat at a rate of knots by simply changing to Diet Coke instead of full fat Coke, don't be annoyed. It's unfortunately the way that biology happens. There's also other things that will affect it. Hormonal changes, where you are in your cycle. When we are in our luteal phase or leading up to our period, the hormonal shifts can cause us to be more hungry. They can cause us to be more tired. And although these won't necessarily shift how many calories we burn in a day directly, they will have secondary impacts. For example, when we feel more tired, we're just not going to move as much. Our calories burnt are going to be lower. We may get sweet cravings, which is essentially going to mean that our calories might be at risk of being higher. Again, it's not a direct impact, it's a secondary impact, but all of these things can shift you out of your calorie deficit. Although calories are king in a sense of you could eat technically anything you want as long as you are underneath the figure that you burn in a day, it is not the most effective way to eat. And that's why we look at protein intake with our clients. Protein is a really useful macronutrient for a number of reasons. One, a higher protein diet is going to keep you fuller for longer, which means that your calories are going to be more stable because you are not going to want to binge or snack. It helps with muscle growth and repair. A higher muscle mass percentage means more calories burnt at rest, means it's going to be much easier in time to stay lean. As the years go on and as we get older, our muscle mass percentage decreases. So strength training and a really good amount of protein per day can really help slow down that process. And another really important figure is protein actually takes the most energy to digest. So a higher protein diet is actually going to increase calorie burn during the day because it has a higher thermic effect of food. So in terms of a protein amount, I'd be looking at 1.6 to 2 grams of protein per kg of body weight. So here's my honest truth about fat loss in women. The internet is full of influencers who don't know their arse from their elbow, who will show what they eat in a really unsustainable and unrealistic way, and often we can get sucked into thinking that we have to copy that. Most women are failing at consistency because they don't know the actual approach to take. They think they might need to cut out carbs, they think they might need to cut out sugar entirely, but I promise you a 500 calorie deficit consistently for 6 months is better than eating 1,000 calories a day for 3 weeks and then giving up. You are going to get to your final destination a lot quicker if you just take the slightly slower approach, because in turn it's going to be a quicker approach. And you just shouldn't ignore the red flags. If you are constantly hungry, if you are constantly thinking about food, if you are fatigued, if you are shaky, if you are dizzy, these are all bad signs, and signs that you are eating far too low. So don't just try and push through. It's not healthy for your body, and there is always a healthy way to do it. So if you are so confused about the calories that you should be on or how to actually lose weight, hopefully I've helped. And if you want to take your results to the next level, there is a link in my description box of how to inquire about our coaching, because I'd love to help you do it the right way. Please make sure to like and subscribe, and I will see you in my next video.